Good morning, everyone. Today is July 24th, 2025, and we're going to talk about the unusual events as they have transpired and the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell has been issued a subpoena. There's the subpoena. So this has been a very interesting, I would say, 2 weeks jam-packed with all kinds of twists and turns, all kinds of really things that normal people, like if you're just GQ public, you're not going to know what's really going on. But those of you who are here, you're like, the reason I wanted to have this live is because and you've been following my work for a very long time. Now, those of you who are new, I just want to say thank you for subscribing and becoming a member of either my podcast here or joining me on one of my other platforms, Substack, Patreon, and X. But I do want to say before I start that because of the way that this platform, let's say, hears certain words, well, I have to use initials in some cases and or other words. So most of you who are here understand that. Those of you who are new perhaps may not know that I have to speak coded language. In any event, first we heard that Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, was going to speak with Ghislaine Maxwell in jail. And when that happened, Ghislaine told her brother Ian and her family that she was, quote, afraid for her life. Well, I think that was a little bit over the top because I don't personally believe that she will be harmed. However, right after that happened, then it was revealed, oh, well, Pam Bondi is going to accompany Todd Blanche. Okay, now they're both going to go to the jail. And then the next thing that happened, well, of course, Donald Trump was questioned. Oh, well, do you know that this is happening? Oh, he's like, before I keep going, I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. I believe the two-party system is just I'm really sorry to disappoint some of you who are really gung-ho on one party or the other, but as a survivor of what I call a cabal, I'm really sorry. That's what I call it, a multi-generational cabal. I don't believe in either party. The way that somebody like myself views it is that the parties are there to give the public the illusion of choice. That said, Trump said, oh, I don't know anything. If Bondi is doing that, okay, maybe that's what they have to do. Well, and then suddenly she's issued a subpoena. And they're going to go to the prison where she is, and they're going to take her deposition on August 11th. That's just, 2 weeks away, okay? So I'm going to read this to you. So Chairman Comer subpoenas Ghislaine Maxwell for deposition at federal prison. And House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform Chairman James Comer, he's a Republican from Kentucky, by the way, issued a subpoena to Ghislaine Maxwell for a deposition to occur at the Federal Correction Institution, in Tallahassee, where she is. Again, the date is August 11th, 2025. And it goes on to say the Department of Justice is cooperating and will help facilitate the deposition at the prison. Yesterday, so this came out yesterday. So when they say yesterday in this, they mean the day before. Representative Tim Burchett, and he's a Republican from Tennessee, made a motion for Chairman Comer to subpoena Ms. Maxwell for a deposition at the Government Operations Subcommittee hearing. Now, I want to say that whenever we have had a hearing, and many of you have heard me talk about the Church Committee hearing by Frank Church in 1975, where we see Frank Church holding up the CIA's very James Bond gun that gives somebody a heart attack, but nobody even feels it. And sitting next to him is John Tower, who I think many of you already know that Robert Maxwell, who was Ghislaine Maxwell's father, he not only blackmailed him, but he bribed him into giving him access to Sandia Laboratories back in 1984 under the Ronald Reagan administration. So in any event, that during that so-called hearing, I've told you repeatedly that only about 10% of that was really open to the public. 90% was suppressed. So I guess my point is that whenever we have a hearing, we, the peons, the public, we're not going to really get a real information. But let me just see if there's anything else here. I'm going to continue with this letter. The facts and circumstances surrounding both your and Mr. E's cases have received immense public interest and scrutiny. At the outset of the 119th Congress on February 11th, 2025, the committee and the task force on the declassification of federal secrets sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Justice requesting a briefing regarding documents in the department's possession regarding, quote, the investigation into and the prosecution of J.E. Clearly, I am using initials for this person's name, but most of you should know what the initials J.E. stand for. On May 8th, the task force sent another letter to the department requesting the public release the entirety of the J.E. files and a briefing regarding the release of these files, wrote Chairman Comer. On July 13, the Daily Mail reported, and by the way, I think I've told you that a very close friend of Ghislaine Maxwell, who I have not named, but I might name in the next day or two, does work at the Daily Mail. She is a very interesting character. I see her very much like an agent for the country whose letter begins with the letter I. And she's a multi-generational, I'm going to call it an asset for a country with the letter I. That said, I have also been very clear, not only on my Substack, but also I was on Sean Atwood's show the other day where I explain how J.E. is connected to CIA and frankly, other places as well. So it's not just one country, it's multiple countries. However, I'm going to go back to this letter regarding the new developments. Okay. And so, the Daily Mail reported that Maxwell was willing to speak with Congress regarding J.E.'s criminal activities. On July 17, President Donald Trump announced that he had directed Attorney General Pam Bondi. She's got the strangest name. It's like James Bond whenever I see that name, but she's just such a weird character, to produce all pertinent grand jury testimony related to the case. The next day, Attorney General Bondi announced that a motion had been filed. She also stated that the Department of Justice would seek to speak with Maxwell about these horrific crimes. Oh my goodness, like they've never heard about this before. I mean, I have always said the JE was a state-sponsored operation. So all of this woe is me reminds me of Leslie Wexner in the early days when he stepped down and he issued this very big public statement. Oh my goodness, he's clutching his pearls. I didn't know that JE was involved in any of that. Sure, wink, wink. You only had Southern Air Transport moved over to Ohio during the time JE was living in your, quote, guest house, your enormous guest house. But no, you didn't know anything about it. Okay, all right. And then it goes on to say, it is imperative that Congress conduct oversight of the federal government's enforcement of trafficking laws generally, and specifically its handling of the investigation and prosecution of you and Mr. E. In particular, the committee seeks your testimony to inform the consideration of potential coffee people. I'm just going to skip that word. Solutions to improve federal efforts to combat transportation and reform the use of non-prosecution agreements. Now, if you remember, JE was given a very lenient non-prosecution agreement by Alexander Acosta. Alexander Acosta was rewarded by Donald Trump during the first administration in 2016. It was in 2017 that he made Acosta the labor secretary. Now, when JE was arrested, just an FYI, refresher course for those of you who may not remember, or those of you who are new to the story, Acosta was called to speak before the public. Donald Trump was standing right next to him, and basically he resigned. Well, no, I don't think he resigned. I think he was kind of removed from the scene because he did give JE a very a never before seen non-prosecution agreement, because he had been told to back off. JE belonged to Intel. It was above his pay grade. And so he went ahead and just gave him a slap on the wrist, and nothing really came out of it because JE went to part-time jail. He opened an office not far away. He would leave with his chauffeur every day. The jail, it was just the county jail. It wasn't even a real jail. Nobody ever locked the door. He had a TV in his thing. He would have food delivered. I mean, it was ridiculous. Anyway, I'm going to go back to this so-called letter and request to subpoena Ghislaine. In particular, the committee seeks your testimony to inform, the consideration of potential legislative, solutions to improve federal efforts to combat transportation and reform the use of non-prosecution agreements and or plea agreements in crime investigations. However, there's another letter. It's a 3-page letter. It's pretty much the same thing I've just read to you. Now, I'm going to just take a quick look at your comments so far. Hey, John, thanks for showing up. Yeah, I kind of went through a lot of stuff connecting one of the many reasons that Donald Trump is sort of like spiraling out of control, because it's my contention, and I write it very clearly in several of my recent articles on Substack, that like Alexander Acosta, Trump has also been told to stand down. And that's why certain things can't be released. Now, they just released the Martin Luther King files without having to go through Congress, without having to get permission from any court. So they can technically release the so-called JE files without having to go through all of these really insane stuff that is happening. Let's see. Jay Bird, this is all nothing but a show for the benefit of the American people, blatant control of the narrative on both sides working together. I would agree. So I'm hearing this. The volume goes in and out now for me. Anybody else? Oh, is the sound okay? Okay, so Debbie says the sound. Debbie, hi, Debbie. It's always good to see you here. Sounds okay to me. Okay. Let's see. I'm reading your comments. I haven't gone away. Thank you, Stacy, Michael. Sound is fine. Thank you very much for that. Okay, thank you for that. I'm just going to keep looking at Okay, here, I want to just, Jay Bird says she is responsible for getting Murdoch to publish the photo of Trump birthday card to JE. Fact is true. She had that released as a firing shot to kind of get his attention. And it was published in the Wall Street Journal. Trump is clearly suing Rupert Murdoch, who has very deep pockets, and that may go on for 2 years. But I have no doubt that that is true. I posted an image of it on my X account. And by the way, my abuser's nephew was Donald Trump's partner, I'm going to say. I have all of that information on my X account. If you're not on my X, just, that doesn't cost you a dime. And by the way, please subscribe and because liking this will help the algorithm. And the reason I bring up my abuser's nephew is because not only was he Donald Trump's so-called partner, but the New York Post wrote that this man, whose name I'm just not going to mention so that I don't get flagged here, purchased one of Donald Trump's drawings. He likes to do a lot of drawings for $16,000. And it showed his thing. Now, the connections of Trump to, let's say, my abuser's family run very deep. And I just want to say that one of the survivors of the Franklin situation, we see in this photograph Fred Trump, who is Donald Trump's father. And I believe I'm the only person to step forward and say that Fred Trump was accused by a victim of the Franklin situation, because despite the fact that there have been 2 books and one I believe, documentary made about this horrific thing, that again is just a continuation from the way that I look at it. He was accused of being one of the people who did unusual things with, let's say, not of age. I hope you catch what I'm saying, but no one else has exposed Fred Trump. The other thing I want to say is that Maria Farmer has made it clear that is Ivana Trump with her then husband, Donald. She was Donald's first wife. She too came into this country in a very illegal manner. She was married before she married Trump. She was a skier, and she was a so-called model. All this model stuff, one day soon, I'm going to be revealing something to you that is so over the top crazy that you're going to be scratching your head for a long time. However, Ivana is originally from Czechoslovakia, which is called something else now, I suppose. She went to Canada. She married a guy there just to get some kind of card so that she can be allowed to stay in Canada. And from Canada, she came into the United States. She met Donald Trump. She married him. However, Maria Farmer has said on multiple podcasts that when she was working for JE and Ghislaine Maxwell, they would invite her into the car, and it would be driven by the chauffeur, and they would be driving along scouting for nymphets. Nymphets is a word that was actually, it's said to have been created by Vladimir Nabokov, who wrote the book Lolita. Now, by the way, I don't know if any of you know this, but Nabokov and that book Lolita is also was paid for by the CIA. If those of you who follow my work very well, you will know that I have presented this information before. However, Ghislaine and apparently Ivana were out trolling for victims, little girls, 14-year-old girls with braces. And then the next day, Maria said she would see these little girls storming into the house, and she didn't know really what they were there for. And when she questioned Ghislaine, Glenn's answer apparently was, well, for the Victoria's Secret catalog. What I want to say is this is one of the drawings that was made at the time that Ghislaine Maxwell was on trial. Now, Maureen Comey has recently been fired. Comey, however, presided over the Ghislaine Maxwell trial and also Sean Puffy Combs. Both of these, and another one, okay, but both of these were very limited in scope, meaning that they had on the stand, in fact, a woman who didn't provide her full name at the time, but who I recognize and I have written about and I have talked about her, who was gifted to JE in addition to other people. So they had people there that could have incriminated Donald Trump, but they decided not to. I believe she may have been fired because perhaps she knows too much. She did the compromising, and we know that during the Sean Puffy Combs trial, under Comey, okay, three of the most significant charges were dropped, so that even Sean Diddy Combs, he's going to be able to get out of jail quicker. Now, people are wondering what's going to happen. I mean, Ghislaine is a long-term friend of Donald Trump. There was something that also Maria said, and I forget on what podcast she said this. Something about Trump and when she met Trump and how he was looking at her legs because she was wearing, shorts. She had run over to the office that he had on Madison Avenue at the Villard houses. Now, I've written extensively about the Villard houses on my Substack. What I want to say about the properties about these people is that these properties, I study architecture. I study who owns what. And I'm in New York, so I kind of know a lot about, who owns this? Because let's call it, there's a lot of money laundering in real estate. But what I want to say is that the office that JE had was the office that was held by someone that was very high up in CBS. And that's not a coincidence. So what happens is the intelligence agencies will use and reuse a certain piece of real estate, let's say. But if you're not aware of who either used it before, like, for example, Studio 54, a major club that Donald Trump and Ivana would go to, where Roy Cohn was also the attorney for Steve Rubel and Ian Schrager. And again, there is a mob connection. There's also an intelligence connection that nobody has caught, because if you look at the history of the building where Studio 54 is, you will know that it was used as by CBS. CBS is one of the first 3 television stations in the United States. We know through, again, the Church Committee hearings that Operation Mockingbird was exposed and that CBS, NBC, and ABC were all compromised. They were all working collaboratively with CIA from their inception, so that there is, even in Studio 54, that connection to the intelligence apparatus through the property. So for me, I look at properties, and it's not a surprise that Donald Trump would be in real estate. I'm going to now take a quick look at your commentary to make sure. Now, if you have any questions, if so that they can stand out to me, if you can just put a Q, and that way it'll just sort of stand out for me. Tantum, Kirby, did you watch the interview on Sean's channel with Epstein's niece? And if so, what did you think? Well, I wrote an article that I uploaded yesterday, expanding on what she said. And I expose something that happened on Wexner's property in Ohio, which again expands on what she said. She said a lot of things that I have been talking about and have been writing about. So that, yeah, I decided to just expand on it. During the course of my work, clearly I've met a lot of people. Some of these people have been in, like Paul Benassi, have been, let's say, put in programs under the umbrella, and I use MK Ultra as an umbrella term. And among these was someone who witnessed something. He too was in this program. It's a boy, so not unlike Paul Benassi, trained to do certain things, trained, frankly, for their first as an slave. Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, allegedly, and subsequently, as he got older, trained to be an assassin. So, like James, like the Bourne Identity movies. I mean, the movies, you have to look for clues, but the movies, a lot of them just have these things, and you can just. But unless you know about these programs, now this particular person had provided, by the way, receipts. I read a comment or two saying, "Oh, well, the proper term is not receipts." Yeah, it is for a podcaster, and for indie, we call them receipts, meaning proof that he was at this location, meaning Wexner's home, and that he saw something that would be incredibly shocking if you and I were to witness it. Even for me, despite the fact that I was also an slave for 8 years to one of the members of, I'm going to call it a cabal again, I'm really sorry. That's what it is. It's a cabal. It's a multi-generational cabal. It would shock me to see something like that. And I uploaded it yesterday. And, it's like, but by now, people are more, at least those people who have followed me for a while and have been on my Substack or on my Patreon. And because I can only say so much on this platform, I try to say as much as I can. So that, yeah, I think that a lot of what she said jives. And yeah, I don't see that. The other thing I want to say is I happened to take a quick glance at the comments of her interview. And the tip I want to give you guys is that the more pushback you see on somebody's post and or interview, let's say, that go study the commentary. That will be like a crash course in COINTELPRO, like pushback. Like most of the comments, and there are a lot of comments for that specific podcast, refer to her as being Looney Tunes, right? But she's not. But frankly, when I get comments like that on my podcast, I don't have, I just block people. You're going to say something nasty about me on my own podcast? Well, yeah, sorry. I'm just going to block you. That's just me. Sean's nice enough to leave these nasty comments up. Otherwise, he would be there all day long, or whoever works for him, deleting them and blocking people from his channel. However, my point is that the more pushback somebody gets, that means that that person is telling you the truth. And that, the powers that be, let's say, they just want to discredit the truth. And whoever, no, this is not so. I just saw that it said that she is Mark's daughter. That's not so. And I saw it, but there's so many comments here. Thank you guys for joining me. Okay, here. No, she is the daughter, Janie Jordan. She's not Mark Epstein's daughter. Sorry. She is Steve's daughter. Now, that's why people are a little confused, because there is another so-called brother whose name is Stephen and who happens to be a physician. And that's who her father. No, he's an attorney. Sorry. He's an attorney in Colorado. So Colorado, what do we know Colorado from? I've told you that J.E. had property in Colorado, but a lot of you didn't know this. And what else do we know about Colorado? John Benet Ramsey. Now, by the way, on my Substack, where I expose the very long friendship of an actress, no, Morgan Fairchild. I also show the ties to John Benet Ramsey's ancestors. So this goes back again many, many generations. It's really not as simple as it looks on the surface. It's just not. Let's see. Becky Knight, Kirby, is it possible that Trump is going to pardon Ghislaine? He wanted to pardon her. I've told all of you before. However, he was advised not to pardon her because at the time she had faced state charges. So that had he given her a federal pardon, she was still going to face the state charges. Therefore, he did not pardon her. However, she's in a very powerful position right now. Now, is she going to tell the truth? No, she lied all throughout any deposition. During the deposition in 2014, before the settlement with Virginia, Robert Giuffre, and rest in peace, Virginia. We're still fighting. We're still fighting for you and for what you presented to the world, because all of these documents, they were released because of you. So because of you, Virginia, we know that Donald Trump is Doe 170, I believe it's 178, whatever the number, but it's 171 or 178, one of those two numbers. So we're still here fighting. But to get back to this question, look, she's not going to tell the truth because the truth would be too big for the truth can't be told. I mean, you get the truth from people like myself. And from what I can tell, I'm the only survivor who writes books, has a podcast, has a newsletter, has a Patreon. I get a lot of pushback. And, I'm used to it. I'm very used to it. However, so let's see. Jay Bird, I can't see her being pardoned, but time taken off will probably be the deal. Well, there's going to be something. They're not going to unalive her because she is too important. And there's the same power that is over Donald Trump. I can't go into details about this. I'm just going to say that the same power that is over Donald Trump is over Ghislaine. That is why nothing has happened to Ghislaine. J.E. was disposable Jean-Luc Brunel was disposable. There have been a lot of unalivements, like because of Donald Trump and JE. Again, on my Substack, there were many bankers that were unalived and many other people that have been unalived. I mean, the list of people who have been permanently silenced is nearly impossible to keep track of. It's not 5, it's not 6, it's not 10. It's really endless, because this has tentacles to many other things that the government would rather the public not know about. Now, if we go back to the original charges for Ghislaine, she's serving a 20-year sentence. She was convicted in 2021 of conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal acts, conspiracy to transport minors to participate in blank, 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 transporting a minor to participate in blank, 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 S, transportation conspiracy, S, transportation of a minor. She's been in jail. She's the only one that has been in jail. Sarah Kellen, all of the other women, nothing. In fact, to the contrary, it's my understanding that they received the bulk of what let's say the JE compensation fund. So some of them received 7.5 million. Now, the JE compensation fund is handled by the same people that handled the Catholic Church compensation, the 9/11 compensation. And for the church, if somebody succeeds in getting, quote, justice, their financial, let's say what they get is $20,000, and they have to fight for it for a long time. So when you look at the fact that I thought the cap was 5 million, no, they've given as much as 7.5 million to the co-conspirators. Now, if that doesn't scream cover up, aside from what we've seen to date, I don't know what does. So I'm going to take a look at your comments. And if you have a question, this is the time. Tantrum, tam. Well, I want to say right off the bat that 2 of the people that you've mentioned are controlled opposition. I'm not going to say their names. I've said their names before. Not everyone who presents yourself. Yeah, sorry. That one right there. That's true. That is true. Don't expect the truth from there. Okay, I mean, there's a lot to controlled opposition. If the women's liberation movement was infiltrated by Gloria Steinem and the Black Panthers were infiltrated by both CIA and FBI, don't you think that the indie media has been infiltrated? I think that you guys are smarter than this, okay? Let's see. Okay, well, I think that I've answered everything. Short order cook 1, the attorney Roy Black, who got JE the special immunity deal. Well, he was one of several attorneys that got the deal. Died yesterday or the day before. This is true. But here's the point. Whether he can be ask questions or not, number one, he's going to cite the fact that, that he can't disclose what a client has disclosed to him. Now, what I will tell you about what I remember before JE was made to disappear is that for an hour or two or three, I can't remember, it was reported. It was reported that he was in the process of making a deal. This is, you're not going to hear this anywhere else. And I remember taking a screen image of that and posting it on my now gone Twitter account, because when Elon Musk took over, my Twitter account disappeared. So I had tens of thousands of followers and it's gone. And now I'm shadow BANNED from every single platform. But it was up, and the deal as it was happening was that he was going to share the names, listen to me carefully, of 500 men who had paid to be with, minors. And it wasn't just girls, by the way, there were boys too. And then that tweet by a mainstream media person disappeared from view, and it was just before he was found, quote, unresponsive. Now, I don't believe he's alive. I believe that's a red herring. I just think that it's like, okay, he was going, he didn't have any reason to unalive himself. He had enough money, as we know, to hire the best attorneys, which he did. And he would have been able to do something to, he had gotten the non-prosecution agreement. He had been tipped off. That's another thing that I think nobody else is aware of. He was tipped off when he was in France, but he came back anyway. He told his butler in France that, oh, they're going to get me. They're going to arrest me when I get back. But he thought, because he had gone to Israel, I reported this in my book, J.E. Predator Spy. He had gone to Israel just before he was supposed to turn himself in to begin his so-called sentence back in 2008. But and by the way, one of the Israeli newspapers, I think it was the Jerusalem Post, which is owned by another JE friend, let's say, reported that he was there looking at the facilities, like, their, like, like where they keep their airplanes and things like that. Just very interesting. Like, and then I thought at that point, oh, he's not coming back, because one of Ghislaine Maxwell's friends committed a crime of extortion against an elite who was again connected to this group, who was found unalived. And I'll do another podcast because that's a very big story. She fled the country. She fled the United States, and she hid out in Israel. One of Ghislaine's close friends, she hid out in Israel for 9 years and only came back after 9 years, upon which she was arrested. And then the man was found unalived, I believe, a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And again, I'll do a podcast on that because it's very interesting. So, I mean, I think that there's just a lot going on behind the scenes that a lot of people are unaware of. I don't believe that she's going to be truthful. I don't believe that Trump is being truthful. I think that this is a charade, and we're going to get what we got here, a sham trial. They thought we would be quiet when he was unalived. We continued our interest and our, all of us have been poking around this story. That didn't happen. And then they arrested her. They knew where she was. It wasn't a really big secret. They had the sham trial, And now they're going to have what I think is a sham um, interview with her in jail. I mean, let me just see. I'm going to just question. Put a 1 in the chat if you think it's all a sham and we the public are going to really hear nothing. Put a 2 in the chat if you think something will actually come out of this. I'll give you guys a minute. A 1, you think it's a sham. A 2 if you think real information will be disclosed to the public. I see a lot of 1s. See a lot of 1s. Okay. Yeah, I see a lot of 1s. I agree with you guys. I don't think we're going to be seeing anything of substance. And by the way, again, I want to reinforce that this was a state-sponsored operation. The United States, remember, arrested Jonathan Pollard. Look up that case. Jonathan Pollard was an analyst with the Navy, and he was selling secrets to Israel. He was put in jail for 30 years. Bill Clinton was blackmailed by the state of Israel during that time because they were listening in to his conversations and what was going on between him and Monica Lewinsky. One of the higher ups in Israel let Bill know, by the way, we've got those tapes, but we destroyed them. No, that's kind of the way that Hoover would go to somebody to get them to do what he wanted them to do. He would say, oh, I have tapes of this, but don't worry, they'll never be seen by the public. So that the fact of the matter is that Jonathan Pollard, the reason that the Monica Lewinsky situation happened was because Israel was trying to get Clinton to let Jonathan Pollard go free. Now, the way Clinton got out of it was, number one, Starr ran interference. It looked like he was working on behalf of the people, but no, that really was not happening. This was a cover-up situation. And Clinton got out of it by saying, well, I'll look into it, but he did not release Pollard. But my point being that the United States would not allow, because all the people that say JE belongs just to the state with the letter I, Mossad. Well, I believe there was some crossover, and I believe just like Robert Maxwell, that yes, there's definitely some work for Mossad. The U.S. government is not going to allow a foreign power, and everybody that puts the horse before the wagon is a little bit wrong with that, because I have proven, again, with receipts, how JE is connected to CIA and other agencies in the United States government. Even Ghislaine's sisters and nephews have worked for the United States government in Intel. And they were even in Barack Obama's White House under Hillary Clinton. So the United States is not going to allow a foreign spy if JE was only working for the state with the letter I to continue. No, this was a state-sponsored situation, hence the reason Alexander Acosta was told to back off. Okay, guys, well, I'm going to take a last look at your commentary. And if I have answered everything, okay, I think I've answered as much as I can. I'm kind of looking forward to see what happens, but honestly, I think we're just being toyed with, and it insults my intelligence. It insults your intelligence. I mean, but the good thing is we've kept this story alive. More eyes are on this than ever before. And so I think that's a win for us. Okay, guys, you have a really good day. Bye.